Hi Amanda. Well, we're finally doing this channeling session. So it's been a while since the first time you mentioned it's something that you would like to do. And praying to the one that it is great and you really get something useful out of this. As I said, you are the new record holder. So congratulations for writing so much and assembling it all in 2 paragraphs. I must thank you for that. So my normal procedure is I tend to read the answers like 5 times. But just because of the sheer volume of what you've written, it's kind of a little bit untenable to read it 5 times. So what I did was when I went through it, I made like a bunch of notes in here specific to you. So I don't need to go over it again. What I do at the start of these sessions is I read your questions back to you just so you are re-familiarized with what it is that you asked. Okay, so I'll just quickly go over these. Number 1, what are the key themes for my life in 2023 and the near future? Number 2, what do I need to focus on to align with my highest possible timeline? 3, what is blocking my ability to receive inspiration and visualize and manifest the next stage of my life? How do I release that? Number 4, my guides have mentioned a lot in recent times that I need to go deeper and be more of myself. But I feel I switched that side off of myself after my breakdown because the pain of not feeling empowered to create my desires and the constant letdowns was so great. How do I go deeper and connect to this aspect of self again? 5, what's going on with my fella? What can I look forward to? Do I still have work to do letting go of the past, including the imprint of past partners? 6, my life seems to be heavily affected in the now by other lifetimes. If we are meant to come here to focus on the current lifetime, then why am I constantly dealing with this, and how am I meant to live out my destiny unencumbered? Is everyone like this? 7, the pattern of the rug being pulled out, healthy-wise and financially, whenever I begin to build success or wealth. Mum and I have it individually. Where is that coming from, and how do I free myself from it? I would like to be able to buy a home, and at the moment, it feels impossible. 8, I've just been advised that my rent is being increased in 3 months, and I absolutely love my apartment. It's very special, but that's getting hard to justify. Any advice? Should I stay, look elsewhere nearby, or something else? 9, what's the problem going on with me and accountants, and how do I create ease in this part of my life? Okay, so you would have seen the explainer video I have regarding my channeling, and this is great. You've provided lots of information and lots of questions. I keep teasing you about how much you wrote, but that's actually a great thing because it makes it so much easier for me when I know that degree of detail about you. 10 questions. It's unlikely we're going to cover all 10, as you're probably already aware. And so maybe I'll do 5, and probably there's going to be some things in there that you didn't actually ask, which my guides just think is relevant, that you didn't sort of have the insight at the moment when you wrote that to ask it. That's usually how it goes down. Okay, so I think we're ready to go. Let's see what's there for you, Amanda. Greetings, Amanda, and thank you for trusting us with this sacred session to bring to you an insight into these many questions that you have brought to us. You have an intricate and fascinating story, and it is of great interest to us to peer into the complexity of who you are and look for clarity to bring to you the forming of something which makes sense, which irons out the wrinkles and creates a inner coherency which perhaps you have not felt as often in your life as you would have preferred to have felt. But it is well within your capacity to shift into a new zone of existence where there is coherency, there is congruency, and the ups and downs of life level out to some degree. And while the cyclic nature of existence will always persist, it can be present yet without being disruptive, without being heartbreaking, and so on. So, your first question: what is the theme for 2023 and going forward? The way that we perceive it is that you are ready for a great shedding of the constrictures of your past, meaning that all of these childhood experiences that you had are still being carried through time with you as a form of baggage, which, when it is in the right scenario such that it can manifest in a self-sabotaging way, is making your life much more difficult than it needs to be. And you are at a point now where you have reached a level of self-awareness that you are ready to step into this new life paradigm of greater coherency and congruency and leave behind this crippling baggage of the past. So, let us just preface what we will say next by letting you know the unfortunate news at this moment that it is not a particularly easy undertaking to let go of the past, and it does require some dedicated effort. However, it is entirely within your reach, and it is something which individuals do every day. So, the point being, you can do this. The way that this is done is to address these traumatic moments of your childhood and to redefine their meaning. So, the scenario that you have brought to us is not typical to what we usually hear, because usually the scenario which is laid out to us has maybe 1, 2, or perhaps even 3 significant crisis points which need to be addressed. However, what you have brought to us is much more chaotic, and this is not meant to be insulting, but it's just an observation that because of the experiences that you've had in your past and your heightened sensitivity, because you are an enlightened being that has been born into a scenario in a state of forgetfulness, but also raised by adults that were very unaware and did not have the skill set in terms of understanding self, being conversant with wisdom, being an intuitive parent, to wake you to this part of you and then help mold that, develop that, craft that into the mighty potential that it contains. And instead what occurred is your hypersensitivity was unrecognized and unappreciated by those that were in your immediate vicinity. They did not feel as deeply as you did. They were not as sensitive as you are. And so they were incapable to fully understand what type of being that you are. And as such, they were very blunt, very coarse, very unmanaged in the way that they interacted with you, with the energies and the ideas that they shared with you. And for perhaps a less sensitive child, a child that has been born in a lesser degree of spiritual evolution, would have been more capable to sort of buffer off the onslaught of anti-wisdom, in a sense. It would have been water off a duck's back, so to speak. But for you, it was very deeply penetrating. It was very painful. It was very hurtful. And it left scars which are at the very heart of who you are, at the very core of your personality as Amanda. But of course, the true essence of who you are is undamaged, is unharmed, can never be touched by what occurs here. However, you are a composite being. And so if you're going to have an earth human experience, then it's essential that you are not totally the spiritual and you're not totally the physical with the personality, but you are a blended being, straddling both identities, such that you can function and absorb all of the experience which is potentiated in your physical reality. So, this is the same as saying that this physical part, this personality aspect of who you are, must be addressed, must be healed, must be taken to a place of rehabilitation, that it becomes an easier endeavor to step up, step up, step up, step up in your evolution as a human being. It is remarkable the success that you have had in your adult life, considering all that you have had to deal with. So we commend you to have been as strong as you have been, because in the background there was so much turmoil, so much chaos, so much doubt, so much external energies intruding into your energies, into your psyche, into your life, that were deliberately disruptive and toxic. And yet even so, despite all of this occurring, you were still able to accomplish a significant degree of success in your career, your pastime, in your professional image, and so on. But you have reached the glass ceiling, so to speak, and it is going to be difficult for you to pass through and then continue the journey upward into greater expanse of self while you're still tethered to your past. So, there is much from your past which needs to be addressed, and this is something which you are going to be more aware of than us, but we can provide a framework that you can use to process these events from your past, and slowly, over a period of dedication and time to this process, you will slowly begin to break down these tethers to your past, redefining what has occurred and setting yourself free. So, it comes as no surprise to you, we are sure, that the number one thing from your past that you must address is your relationship with your mother. Your mother had and still has a very proud belief in your potential. And she believes that you are capable of much more than you have accomplished. However, the way that she has utilized this belief has been destructive, because instead of seeing in you greatness and seeing in you accomplishment and so on, she has instead seen inadequacy. You are inadequate in the fulfillment of your potential. You are being less than what you could be. You could be so much more. You are below the level that you deserve to be at. And so this has been absorbed by you as a belief that your mother perceives you as being disappointing, as being underwhelming. And this has been a direct consequence of the unskilled way in which she has conveyed that energy and that belief to you. Because she has a conceptual difficulty with someone feeling good about themselves when she perceives it isn't deserved. So, if you feel good about your accomplishment and you are feeling confident about what has transpired as a direct result of your efforts, and your mother is observing this, and she sees that even though an accomplishment has been made, it is still below what you possess as potential, then her tendency is to pull you down, to cut you off at the knees, because she feels you shouldn't be feeling good about yourself when you have not yet fully attained your absolute potential. However, the problem with this is that what she has defined as your potential is nebulous. It has not been defined at all. It is just this never-ending opinion that you could be more. And so this chase into the future to be the daughter that you think your mother wants you to be has no endpoint, because the goals are continuously moving. And this has caused a great degree of inner conflict and confusion within you, because you have attained levels of success which are significant, which are very impressive indeed. However, because you have not received the acknowledgement of your mother in a very profound and specific way, then this has manifested in itself as a doubt, a sense that you are actually a fraud, that you have fooled the outer world, or for somehow you have had this success, but in reality, the dark secret is that you aren't really as good as you appear to be. That you don't really deserve the accolades, because although you can pull it off, it just really wasn't a substantial expression of who you truly are, because you are less than that. You are faking it in a way. And this is very, very closely related to your relationship with your mother, and what you perceive is her opinion and perception of you. So, there is much to be said on this topic. So let us get down now to some specific strategies that you can use. Regarding this baggage from childhood, you begin this process of dismantling it and redefining it by looking at the repeating self-sabotaging patterns in your life, and consider, when this occurs, what is my feeling? What is my feeling that makes this happen? What is it that I'm holding energetically which manifests this outcome? Perhaps it is a belief that you are not good enough. Perhaps it is a belief that you do not deserve success. Perhaps it is a belief that if success was ever to truly come, that you would not be able to handle it. You would not be up to it. You would be exposed in this way. And we think this one in particular is quite relevant. And this is why when you reached that pinnacle of marketing your career, where you received the top accolade, and yet when the time preceding was your opportunity to roll this into something bigger, you suddenly felt paralyzed and was unable to proceed beyond that point in the way that you hoped and knew was possible. And this is because this next step was going to put you into the limelight. And in the limelight, there was a great potential that you would be exposed as the fraud, exposed as being incapable of fulfilling the expectations that people will have of somebody such as yourself that has achieved this accolade. So it was very literally a fear of being successful. And again, this is very related to your mother. So it is important to think, when in your past has your mother made you feel inadequate? Made you feel that you are actually less than you were allowing yourself to believe in that moment. Those moments when she took the wind out of your sails, when she cut you off at the knees, because she was feeling a discomfort to see you in a state of self-admiration that she felt wasn't deserved because it was below your potential. And go back through your memory until you can find the very first occurrence of this dynamic. And it is not entirely essential that you have an actual specific memory, but go back to the feeling, if you can't have the actual memory, that you feel was the very first time that you were made to feel inadequate in a moment when you were feeling successful. Because of your mother. Your mother made you feel inadequate in a moment when you were feeling successful. So perhaps it was when you came to her to pridefully tell her about something that you had just done, feeling in that moment you are going to receive the admiration and accolades of your mother. But instead, she responded to you in a way which made you feel less, that took the wind out of your sails, that made you have the self-conception that, oh, actually, I'm not that great. Oh, actually, I didn't succeed. When you find this moment, put yourself into that moment as the adult and spend time with this child that you were. And take her away from that actual scenario. So walk off into the distance. And so now there is a separation between you and her and that actual scenario. Your mother's not there, she's not watching, she's not listening, it's just the two of you. You now as the adult and the child you. And look her in the eyes and redefine what occurred. And let her know, the young you, that she was beautiful, that she is beautiful, that she is successful, that she is amazing, that she is unique and talented. And explain to her that this feeling that you are less is not because it's the truth, but it's because your mother was unskilled in the way that she parented you. And so, even though Mum said that, it's not true. It's not true. Because the truth is, you're amazing. You're beautiful. You're so smart. You're so sensitive. You're able to see things that other people can't see. You're wise. You're really, really amazing. And sometimes grown-ups say things which aren't right. They don't understand. Just because they're older than you doesn't mean they know better than you. Not always. Sometimes when it comes down to wisdom, they actually are less wise than you. So don't worry what she said. Just remember, I'm telling you because I understand. You are amazing. And what you said, this accomplishment you had, was a tremendous success. And you can have more and more and more of those because you are amazing. This is the type of dialogue that you want to have with this young version of yourself. Very sincere. And so when this has been completed, the memory then should be that you were successful, that you were amazing, that you did something really fantastic. And so when you have done this many times, many iterations, so it is a process which takes months. And when you do your meditation, part of your meditation should be dedicated to going back and addressing your memories in this way. And going through the exact same process, having the same conversation. And what will occur over time is that when you recall that memory will no longer be what it used to be, which was the moment where your mother ripped your heart out and made you feel that you were a useless failure. And instead, that memory will become the memory of you doing something amazing. And what your mother said, that was irrelevant. So what? So what? She didn't know what she was talking about. But I remember I was amazing. I was fantastic. I was so successful in that moment. And this process can be repeated for all of the meaningful, tragic interactions with the important adults in your life throughout your childhood. But of course, it is very difficult to address them all. So if you can address the very first one, because when you address the very first one, this is when you first absorb that self-conception, where your mother said, oh no, basically you failed, you're a failure. And then that was the very first moment that you incorporated that idea. Oh, I'm a failure. Oh, okay, that's something more I know about myself now from that experience. And that's why it's most powerful to address that particular occurrence. So, as you go through this process, and during your meditation, if you just go into a space in your meditation, it is dedicated to healing your past, addressing these traumas from your childhood. And you will have one or two, perhaps, like we just suggested, and you can just hang in this space and ask your subconscious to tell me, what else do I need to address? And your subconscious, being closely in communication with your higher self, will give you memories. The more you do this, the more you will find memories start to appear, and memories that you have not had for a very long time. Oh, I totally forgot about that. I haven't thought about that for 35 years. Yet your subconscious will provide it to you because it is significant. So as these memories start percolating up, address them individually. And we would suggest keep some form of journal so you know which ones have been addressed and so on, so that you can be more strategic and efficient in this process. So, unfortunately, there is no simple answer that will be useful to you at this point in your life. But in the full scope of your lifetime, it is but a small window of dedication to this process so that you can be set free to journey through this second phase of your life in a much more rewarding way, without the encumberment and the constricture of all of this baggage that you bring from your chaotic past. So, in summary, for this first question, your purpose for 2023 and onwards is to resolve the past. It is resolution, to release, let go, redefine all of the significant events from your early childhood, such that it is something which is no longer a significant part of who you are, from the perspective that it literally is shaping the way that you live your life now. And as you can see, it is shaping your life in a way which isn't favorable, which you prefer would be different. Okay. While we're here at this point in the discussion, we are going to speak a bit more now about your mother. And this is not a question you've asked specifically, but we think it is very pertinent and very useful for you to hear. So, your mother, as you have said, is still doing the same old things that she did in the past. So this is a very sort of annoying and destructive way that she communicates with you, relates to you, is still present today, just as it was in the past. There seems to have been very little growth in your mother. And this is very typical of her generation. So her generation was the last generation of humanity in the West that had a rigidity which was just very naturally inherent to their energy lattice. And so it is much more challenging for those in her generation to go through significant change in their lifetime. Unless it's related to some type of very impactful trauma, usually what will occur is they will go through their life and they will not change very much at all. And they will become spiritual, but in an intellectual sense. So they will understand intuitively that there is something of value, something meaningful, something which is important about developing oneself spiritually. Yet, because of this rigidity in their energy, that their evolution from a spiritual, energetic perspective will not change much. But instead what occurs is they become conversant. They read the books, they listen to the lecturers, and they gather a lot of intellectual knowledge, a lot of conceptual understanding about spirituality. And this becomes a layer of facade that the outer world sees this sense that is a spiritual person. But it's really because they're intellectually conversant with the principles of spirituality. But the reality is behind this facade is still this same rigidity that they've taken through their entire lives. And so when they are in private with those that have known them forever, they are just the same old person. And this facade of spirituality is non-existent. It is literally just what the outer world perceives, but it is not reflective of what the truth is. So, this is not an attack or a criticism on your mother or of her generation, but it's just a very natural consequential manifestation that we have observed in your experience. So, your generation is among the first generations that have come into this experience with a great degree of flexibility, and so can go through very profound and significant transformation in their lifetime, and it is done with much greater ease. And then of course the generation that has followed you have come with an even greater degree of those qualities. And this is the natural spiritual evolution of the humanity being, because it is just one being, and all of you exit and return to continue this journey. So, the way that this information is useful to you and relevant is that if you remain tethered to your mother, then you are going to be subject to her spiritual rigidity, her inability to significantly transform who she is always going to be something which dampens your spirit, which stops you from really achieving a potential which is beyond what she is capable for herself. And the way that this manifests, this incapacity to transform significantly in how it relates to you, is that you perceive yourself through the eyes of your mother. And this is very typical. This is very typical for children to perceive themselves through the eyes of their parents, particularly their same-sex parent. So, this connection you have with your mother is something which needs to be redefined for both of you to have a more healthy future and a more healthy relationship. Because you are trapped in this dynamic where your mother is above you or puppeteering you in a way. And this is meaning that you have some degree of freedom, but not entirely, because you are still under the control of your mother. And on the other side of this, your mother also is trapped in this dynamic. She can't relate to you in a different way because both of you are enabling and persisting this dynamic where she is controlling you to some extent and you are allowing her to control you to some extent. And so both of you are trapped in this very old and familiar dynamic. And so it is important for your growth and for hers that you emancipate yourself from her and you begin standing next to her as a peer rather than under her as a child. You have already recognized that your mother is not infallible, that she is a woman with her fair share of faults. And as such, there is really no sense in deifying her. And we understand that you don't deify your mother, but there is still an aspect of you because your mother is an impressive woman. She has accomplished a lot. She holds herself very well in an environment with other people. She shines. And so as a child, you were very observant of this about your mother having this very, very brilliant quality where she could enter a room and become the center of focus in that room. And then seeming to accomplish significant things with great ease and style and class. And this has instilled within you this sense of awe and revere for your mother, and even deifying her as the ultimate version of a woman. Again, this is very typical. One of the hallmarks of adulthood is to come to a point where you look upon your parents and you have great love and respect for them, but you also acknowledge that they are not infallible. They are flawed beings. And there are some things in which they are operating from a lower level of wisdom than you are. And so it makes no sense to continue to place yourself below them such that they have some degree of control of you, because they are operating in some facets from a lower level of wisdom than you are. And this is just the default state of being part of this growing humanity being in its own wisdom, where each generation is more wise than the one prior, in a general sense. So, it is important that you emancipate yourself from your mother and you develop an energetic where you are standing side by side with her as a peer. And when you are able to do this, this will have a transformative effect on your relationship. And you will find that your mother begins to treat you and communicate with you and express her ideas about you to you in an entirely different way, with greater respect, with a greater appreciation of the boundaries of what is appropriate and what is not appropriate, with a greater a greater sense of your fullness, your value, your strength, such that she will not say the things that she said in the past, because she will perceive that as crossing the line, as not showing due respect. So, this will be mostly an energetic shift on your part, but not only energetic. So, the energetic way that you will experience this is that you will be less affected by the things that your mother says. So if your mother has her little offhanded comment, or the way she normally cuts you down, or whatever it is she says, which really irritates you because she's always done it and you're so tired of it. The way that you'll experience this when you have emancipated yourself from her energetically is it will be like, so what? Just mum being mum. Mum always says that garbage. Just because she says it doesn't mean it's true. All right? Dear old mum, I love her, but sometimes she just talks so much shit. This is really sort of the energetic indifference. So she's my mum, I love her, she's always going to be my mum. She says a whole bunch of bullshit, she's flawed, she gets things wrong, but hey, she's my mum and I love her to death. All right? And so if she says those things, whatever. That type of energetic indifference is going to set you free. And so then when you are actually with your mother, because you are no longer chasing her acknowledgement, you're not chasing anything from her. You don't need her to look at you and then somehow anoint you as being worthy, or anoint you as being successful, or anoint you as being anything. Then it becomes much easier to communicate her in a more authentic way. And so when she says something which you disagree with, or which is offhanded, or it's a slight, you can just say, that's bullshit, mum. Nah, not buying it. Nah. But you do it with an energetic indifference. And when you do it with an energetic indifference, it doesn't switch on her habituated response from this lifelong dynamic you've shared together. And so she will be free to respond in an entirely different way, which is more appropriate for two adult women communicating with each other in an air of equality and respect. And so by emancipating yourself this way, you are also freeing your mother to come at it, to come into it in an entirely different way, which will be beneficial for both of you. While we are talking about parents and this concept of addressing the moments in your past, we think this is a good moment to speak about your father, and also to make some connection between your relationship with your father and the experiences that you've had in relationships as an adult woman. The primary energy that we get from your concept of your father, the sort of energetic impression, is that your father did not value you. He did not look at you and perceive something of a value which was significant enough that he was willing to bring you into his arms and give you the time and energy and interest that would give you a sense that my father really is really into me. My father really loves me, really thinks I'm fantastic. This was kind of absent from your experience of your father. And so instead what you came away with is this idea that my father doesn't really value me. I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm there, so what, who cares? And also that when the opportunity arises, that your father abandoned you. And you went, oh, I've had enough of this. See you, I'm out of here. And yes, you're my daughter, but look, I got something better going on over here now, so I'm gone. You know, that's how much you mean to me. Not much at all. I acknowledge that we're related, that you're my daughter. You know, I have a fondness for you, I kind of love you, but you know, you're definitely not a priority. There are certainly other things in my life that I would choose, many of them, before I chose you. This is the sort of the energy, the conception that we get about your father, your relation to him, your energetic impression of him, and so on. And this is something which has been reflected in your relationships with men. So, you have carried with you this feeling, this belief that the men that you're with don't really value you the way that you deserve to be valued. And it's very simple for them to abandon you, for them to just walk away, and walk away with really no tribulation at all, because you were so meaningless to them. You really never meant that much, and therefore when the breakup occurs, it is not a heartfelt discussion so there can be some kind of amicable resolution. It is just like a message, an email, a text. I'm done, see you. This is how it's manifesting in your life, and this is why you have a history of struggles and short-lived relationships, because of this energy you bring into your relationships, this belief that you'll never be truly appreciated and valued by the man that you're with, and it will be easy for them to just walk away and abandon you. This may not have been the imprint on every relationship that you've had, but certainly we would say it has been a significant theme. And for you to move into this next phase of your life without this baggage, then it must be addressed. You must use this same process that we discussed regarding your mother, where you think about the feelings that you have had from your father, the feelings of abandonment, the feelings that your father doesn't really care about you, doesn't have an interest in you, that he doesn't value, that you are essentially valueless to the main man in your life. And go back through time and find the place where you feel was the very first time that you absorbed that self-conception, where it was, oh, I see, I'm kind of valueless to Dad. Dad doesn't care about me. I'm kind of just nothing to Dad. Okay, I understand that now. That moment where that became part of your identity, that very first experience, and then go through this same process where you want to redefine, take the young you away from that scenario where it's just the two of you and have a heartfelt discussion where you tell her the truth, that you are very worthy, that you're amazing, that you're beautiful inside, outside, that the right man will be able to see and appreciate this tremendous value you have, and so on and so on and so on. Let us say this is part one done of this discussion, and the theme of part one was you must address your past. You must go through it and straighten it out so that you are not carrying it as some type of heavy weight on your shoulder, which crushes and messes up everything through this compulsion to self-sabotage. Your questions 3 and 4 about what is blocking you. Why aren't you able to receive the inspiration about how to manifest the next stage of your life, what to do next? And also question 4, where your guides are saying you must go deeper, you must be yourself. This is all related to this part 1, which we've just finished. So if you are going to be fully expressed in your potential in all ways, then you must clear the past. And this attachment to the baggage of the past is what is shutting down your ability to have a vision of your future, because it is crushing, it is blinding you to the possibilities, because it has created a self-belief system which is inhibiting your vision into the future, and it must be addressed. Otherwise, what will eventuate is just more of the same turmoil, more of the same disappointments in life and disappointments in yourself. So, The fact that you cannot see the future, the insight about where to go, what to do next, and your guides are saying go deeper. This message is very deliberate. It's a very deliberate, engineered self-state by your higher self aspect, by your guides, because they want you to be introspective. They are trying to turn your vision inwards, but not in a neurotic way. Instead, in a healing way. It is up to you to become your own healer. And this will be part 2. Part 2 of this transformation. The first part is really getting down to understanding what it is from your past that has crippled you so much throughout your adult life. And then part 2 is going through the healing. Healing yourself. Laying to rest all the demons of the past, such that you can emerge from the chrysalis and spread your wings as the new beautiful butterfly, ready to peacefully fly through the next phase of your existence. Regarding your question about your fella, this has already been addressed to some degree with this discussion about your father, because until you resolve those energetic tendencies from your relationship with your father, you're going to have a repeated experience with men in your life. And this sense of abandonment has now become so profound that you are literally being abandoned by men before they meet you, if you can follow what we're saying. So men aren't entering in your life because your sense of abandonment is so intense that the opportunity is not even coming into your life, because the men are abandoning you before you even meet them. So this needs to be addressed. And this question you have about how the past lives are incurring into your current existence. Why is it the way it is? Why does it have to be this way that it makes your life so difficult? We would say that you have brought a lot of baggage from past lives that is yet to be resolved. And your mission in this life was to resolve many of these issues which had occurred in the past. So, in past lives, you have reached a significant degree of spiritual awakening, because you had the choice, or you chose to be born into a circumstance where your hypersensitivity and propensity for deep spirituality was appreciated by those who rose you. And in fact, it was recognized as being something which was unique and powerful. And so you were deliberately educated in a way to be conversant with these particular qualities. But in this lifetime, you have specifically decided to be born into a more challenging environment, such that much of the smaller stuff from past lives can be resolved in this one lifetime. Things such as relationships with your mother, relationships with your father, the self-conception, the capacity to believe a specific thing about yourself because you know that it is the true truth of you, even though it is not what has been conveyed by your mentors or by those who were significant in your life, which is, in your case, your parents. So, this is why it is so important that you now devote some time of your life, the next 6 months, for example, to resolving these issues from your past, from your childhood. your relationships with your mother. And also, these experiences you had with ghosts or energies which chose to inhabit you. All of these need to be addressed in some capacity such that they can be let go, and this echo from the past can be in a state of resolution. On this point of you being hijacked by negative energies which you did not invite into you, but they entered you nonetheless. This was because you were not under attack, but rather you were magnetic to those energies. And this is not because you are dark yourself, but really because you are just in a state of confusion. And because you are a very sensitive being, you're very open, you're very vulnerable. So when you're very open and vulnerable, but also entertaining dark self-conception because of the traumas that you had experienced, then this made you very magnetic to these dark energies. And so they did not so much victimize you, but rather they were just, their attachment to you was just consequential to the energetics. So, when this occurs, you can, or we would recommend, that you use these moments to heal the energy. So when the energy comes to you, rather than fight it and reject it and be horrified by it, that it has become part of your energetic makeup, we would suggest instead recognize that you are a harmonic. This is what we would say is one of your very special talents, is that you are a harmonic. And so you are very skilled, or very capable rather. We would say probably not that skilled, because you allow it to happen with some degree of unconscious realization that this is what you're doing. But we would say that you have a very natural gift, a very present talent to harmonize with those that are around you. And we don't mean harmonize as in you can get on with each other, but harmonize as in you can match their energies very, very well. And so whatever their energetic state is, you have a very strong tendency to harmonize with it. And so you become resonant with their energy. And this is why it's so important for you to be in an environment where those who are around you are of a high, coherent, energetic state. So that when you harmonize with them, you are harmonizing with something which is already pleasant and healthy. Because if you are in an environment where other people in that environment are very incoherent, are very incongruent, are very tumultuous and chaotic in their energies, you will find that you will harmonize with that also. And we expect in your life you have felt this. You have been in environments where you're around people and you're just getting a really bad, I'm just not comfortable here, it just doesn't feel right. It's actually kind of painful, it's really uncomfortable. It's because you are very malleable in your energy. And so you have this very natural talent to harmonize with the energies of others. We would say that you are a harmonic or an empathic. So, when these dark energies attach to you, it is because you unconsciously harmonize with them. And then they just very naturally, consequential to that, attach to you. But when this does occur, as we said, don't be horrified, don't be trying to reject it and get it out of you and at all costs. Instead, use it as an opportunity to heal this energy which has attached to you. So, the way that this is done is using your capacity for harmonization. You elevate your own energy. So you take control over your sense of self, over your sense of energetic constituency. And so then you bring yourself to a high frequency level in a holistic way. And you bring that energy with you and you heal it. You bless it. You give that to it from a place of loving generosity in your heart, your desire to heal that energy, to share in a service, as a service, this very rare and special gift that you have been endowed with in this lifetime. And so, rather than it being a tragedy, it becomes a healing. If you have seen the movie The Sixth Sense, it is very similar in conception. So, the child was very terrified and horrified by these spirits that came to him. But when he made a paradigm shift in the way that he perceived it, he realized it was an opportunity to heal, to be of service, to utilize this very rare talent that he had in a way which was loving and generous. And this is a great metaphor for how we suggest you also operate. Now let us progress to your final questions. This idea of the rug being pulled out. So as soon as you start achieving some level of success in areas of your life, the rug is pulled out, everything tumbles down, and you're sent back to ground zero. Why does this keep occurring? And this is very related to your relationships with your father, but in particular with your mother. So this thematic way of relating to you, where your mother would always speak to you and address you in a way which made you feel that you aren't good enough for her, that she is disappointed in you, that she looks at you and she sees inadequacy. But of course, this was just her unskilled way of trying to lovingly help her child achieve her full potential. Really, this is what it was. It wasn't coming from a place of malice. Although she could be harsh and she could be unkind, she had her moments, but in a very broad-stroked generalization of how she perceived you, it was that she saw you as being somebody who had huge amounts of potential, more than her. And she was never going to be satisfied until she saw you realize how amazing you are and step into that potential. But unfortunately, she was very unskilled in the way that she tried to bring that about. And as you said, it is very typical of that generation to be judgy, to be critical, and use criticism as a form of encouragement. But of course, for the more sensitive child, it is counterproductive. So, your mother's tendency to cut you off at the knees. So when you were in a place, in a moment, in a scenario where you were feeling inflated about what you had accomplished, about your success, and then you would platform it for your mother. You would present it. Mum, look at what I did. Mum, look at what I am. And then she would say how it is, it's good, but it's not good enough. It's okay, but it could be better. It seems fine, but there is this and this and this, which is wrong. This has then manifested in your adult life as soon as you start reaching a place where you are beginning to feel genuinely great about yourself. Your belief system is that you are inadequate, that you are not the real deal, that you can't maintain the success because in reality, you're a fraud. And so you self-sabotage, manifest it all coming crashing down. And then when you're back at ground zero and you are a nothing again, then you have a coherency with your belief system. This makes sense. It makes sense that my life has fallen apart and I'm at ground zero and I'm basically a nothing again because look, let's face it, this is the truth of who I am. And whenever I climb the ladder and get up towards the lofty heights of success, I'm really just faking it. I'm really just a fraud. And sooner or later, inevitably, I'm going to be found out, something's going to go wrong, and it's all going to come falling down again. Until I am at this ground zero place, and it's like, yeah, well, look, this is where I belong to be. This makes sense to me, okay? And of course, this is the voice of your subconscious. Your subconscious has this belief system because that belief system was integrated into you when you were a child, passively, primarily through the relationship with your mother. So of primary importance, you must address the historical aspect of your relationship with your mother and also your current relationship with your mother. You must resolve this while she is still alive. So if it is painful, if it is difficult, it still must be resolved. Because once your mother passes, if you have not resolved these issues, then it is going to be even more difficult because she has been imprinted in your mind as a particular way. And if you never had the opportunity to see her behave in a different way, then it's going to be very difficult for you to make this emancipation from her in that way within your own psyche. So it's important, you must do it. And the final question that we're going to answer is this one regarding the increasing of your rent. We will just give a brief answer here. There are many homes in which you could be extremely happy and that you could live there and look about the walls and say, this place is a special place. So, although we understand that you do not want to leave there, this is not unusual. Humans do not like to leave. In general, once they're at a place where it feels right, humans can be very habituated to an environment and continue on with the same repeating cycle, even when that cycle in some ways is detrimental, is toxic. Now, we are not suggesting that you being in that house is toxic or detrimental in any way, but just to illustrate that your sense of not wanting to leave is typical. So, what we would say is of greater importance is what will be your energetic state once your rent has increased. If your energetic state is going to be a greater degree of dread and worry and doubt about whether you can support yourself financially, then this is something you do not want in your life. Because of course, if this is your energy and beliefs through this worry, then it is also going to be your experience because you will manifest it. And possibly you will eventually be forced out of that home anyway, but you will have taken a financial beating before you reach that point. Because you may go through another 6 months or 12 months of manifesting your worries about your finances, and such that you are inundated with other ways in which you are manifesting your wealth and money leaving your life. So, we would say be mindful of that. And also open yourself up to the possibility that there is another place which you could feel just as special and love just as much. And even more than that, you could love even more than the place that you're currently in. All of your experience is meaningless, meaning that there is no inherent meaning. It just is. The only meaning that it has is the meaning that you give it. So, when you are thinking about and perceiving this concept of moving away from your current home, rather than coming at it from the lens through this view that this sucks, this will be terrible, I'm never going to find a place as good, this is really tragic, I'm so sad this is happening. Because if that is the energy and the belief systems you bring to it, then what comes next will be a manifestation of that energetic and mind state. So, a better way to come at it is to be excited. This is fantastic. I believe that this is necessary for me to find a place which is much better and crazy cheap, super beautiful. I'll love it even more than I love it here. It's going to be great for meeting my next partner, and so on and so on and so on. So construct a belief system around this decision which is filled with positivity and filled with all the things that you want and none of the things that you don't want. And then this is how you manifest what comes after that to be a greater experience than the one that you currently have in that place. We will leave it there, Amanda. Thank you very much for coming to us. We hope that this has been useful to you. It has been fascinating for us to have this discussion. It is not often that we encounter somebody that is as integrated into the energy of their parents as much as you are. So this signifies to us that you were there for your parents. You were an open vessel. You were the loyal servant, willing to do whatever it was that your parents wanted you to do. And no matter how they replied, how they responded, how they treated you, you just accepted it. Because that's what a dutiful and loyal daughter does. And so your parents have been lucky to have a child such as you, even though they were not fully capable to appreciate how special you are and were as a child. With great love and blessings for your future, we shall say goodbye and send to you a package of love and hope that we hope can sweep over you and give you a sense that everything is going to be fantastic and your future is going to be wondrous, amazing, and exciting. Thank you, and we love you.